Welcome to another edition of Don Hammond's Arlington Weekly News. We have an unusual lineup this week. News, coverage of Arlington's Town Hall meeting, Community Bulletin Board, and some actual 55-plus news. Then there's a follow-up to last week's Sign of the Times and a more general look at public postings. That's the show. As for social media, you can watch us on YouTube at Arlington Weekly News and the number 1, also on Facebook, and you can listen on the radio at WERA 96.7 FM. Now on to the news. As of Sunday evening, June 14th, reports show the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Arlington had exceeded 2,300. On Friday, June 12th, Arlington County entered Phase 2 of the Governor's Forward Virginia plan along with the rest of Northern Virginia. Phase 2 allows restaurants to offer indoor seating at 50% capacity, houses of worship to open at 50% capacity, fitness centers to admit patrons at 30% capacity, pools to open both indoors and outdoors, botanical gardens, zoos, and other outdoor venues to open, provided social distancing is observed. I call this next story unfazed. Although there has been date-based guidance from the governor about Arlington's gradual resumption of normal operations, some organizations appear to be acting on their own timetables. For example, the Harris Teeter on North Glebe Road extended their operating hours to 6 a.m. to 11 o'clock p.m. effective May 23rd. The Safeway at Wilson Boulevard and Emerson Street similarly extended their hours from 6 a.m. to midnight. Giant Food restored their 6 a.m. to midnight hours effective June 1st. For shoppers, one advantage of the restored hours is the decreased risk of overcrowding. Here is some sad news for music lovers. The Guitar Center at Seven Corners, which was the nearest location to central Arlington, has closed, at least for the time being. A visit on Saturday afternoon revealed exterior locks on the doors and a notice about unpaid rent. The nearest open store is now on Duke Street in Alexandria. On Friday, June 12th, Arlington County sent out an email suggesting that the safest way to vote in the upcoming elections is by mail. The message did provide a link which enabled users to request a mail ballot, but it didn't provide much advance notice for some of the events. For example, the deadline to request a mail-in ballot for the June 23rd Republican primary for U.S. Senate was announced as being Tuesday, June 16th. By the time you hear this story, that deadline will have already passed. The deadline for the July 7th special election is slightly better, June 30th, but there's a note below that date saying ballots are mailed 45 days before an election, which is impossible for the July 7th special election. In that special election, there are 3 candidates running to fill Eric Gutschall's position on the Arlington County Board. In alphabetical order, they are Bob Cambridge, Republican, Susan Cunningham, Independent, and Takis Karatonis, Democrat. Bob Cambridge is an attorney who has lived in Arlington off and on for over 40 years. His online statement invokes the parable of the blind men and the elephant and advocates the sharing of different points of view. Susan Cunningham is a 25-year Arlington resident, and she cites extensive experience with nonprofit boards, community planning events, and school board and county board committees. She has been endorsed by former county board member John Weistat. Takis Karatonis is an economist with over 25 years of urban and regional planning experience. His statement says that he is committed to ensuring that the Arlington community continues to build on its legacy of safe and walkable neighborhoods, ethnic and cultural diversity, excellent schools, public places and facilities, fiscal responsibility and accountable government, and an unwavering commitment to community involvement. On Saturday, June 13th, a group of more than 100 people gathered at the Drew Model Elementary School for an observance and vigil for George Floyd, who died in police custody in May. The event was sponsored by the organization Black Parents of Arlington. Families and neighbors were welcomed regardless of race or ethnicity. There were speeches from local leaders and organizations addressing a variety of topics, including police brutality, criminal justice, training for teachers, and the hiring of more diverse groups of employees. After the speeches, the group joined in the song "Lift Every Voice and Sing," which the NAACP had dubbed the Negro National Hymn in 1919. The popular reference has changed over the years, and it became more widely known as the Black National Anthem. Candles were lit to commemorate George Floyd's life. One of the attendees had an additional observation. She said, "It's not just about black people. It's about all people. We have to be together. We want better. We want better for our children. We want better for our nation. We have to get along." Now here is our report from last Friday's Town Hall. Arlington's June 12th Town Hall started at noon instead of the usual 12:30 p.m. Attendees were Katie Crystal, Matt DiFerrante, Dr. Ruben Varghese, Mark Schwartz, Jim Schwartz, and Dr. Aaron Miller. Here are the highlights. Arlington's coronavirus numbers are still trending positive, so we are entering Phase 2 today. Phase 2 still calls for social distancing and face coverings. The following initiatives are ongoing. We Are Covered distributes badges pledging compliance with COVID-related precautions, especially masks. 60 temporary outdoor seating arrangement applications have been received, and there have been 240 online reports for compliance issues. There have been discussions with the Ethiopian community and some of the other minority groups. Masks will be provided to community organizations next week. A second day of free COVID testing at the Barcroft Fitness Center has been scheduled for Friday, June 19th. There was a reminder about the need to participate in the 2020 census. Next came the questions. Concerning essential metrics, Dr. Varghese noted a decrease in hospitalizations. He also indicated that there would be monitoring for protest-related spikes in COVID cases, and the county is continuing contact tracing. There was another reminder to protest safely, which includes carrying signs rather than yelling. Arlington is still experiencing community transmission. The next questions involved Phase 2. The Core 4 COVID procedures still apply: hand washing, social distancing, staying safer at home, and wearing face coverings. The Virginia.gov website, under Forward Virginia, has specifics. When asked about opening playgrounds, Jim Schwartz replied that he was hoping to do so on June 26th, but there are equipment cleaning problems. Even when the playgrounds are opened, there will be a need for social distancing as well as face coverings for children over the age of 2. Dr. Varghese reiterated the significant element of personal responsibility and the need to supervise the children. As for public transit, there is still no certain date for full-service resumption. Suspension of fare collections is being considered but has not yet been decided. When asked about mask enforcement, viewers were instructed to report problems on the web. The response would be reminders and making masks available for those in need. When asked about antibody testing, Dr. Varghese stated that it's becoming more available, but remember, its purpose is just to determine prior exposure. It does not assure immunity. Residents will still have to wear face coverings and observe the remainder of the Core 4 precautions. When asked about yard waste, Jim Schwartz replied that Arlington's contractors are still affected by COVID, so for now there will be no yard waste or large item collections. He is hoping for services to resume by the end of July. Meanwhile, the drop-off sites are still available. Mr. Schwartz also noted that while office waste has declined, home waste has increased. A question about temporary outdoor seating arrangements in parking lanes came up. The questioner was referred to the county website for answers, but the new Phase 2 allowance of interior opening of restaurants may help. There was an update about libraries. On June 15th, curbside service was set to start at Central Library only. The other libraries are still closed. Questions about long-term care centers still received no statistics, but the acknowledgement that there was greater risk there. Therefore, entrance is still limited to staff. Essential workers are being stretched. As for child care centers, many have stayed open and more are opening. There was a reminder. Parents should keep kids home if they are ill with anything. There has been a slight relaxation for pools. Arlington Public School pools are open both indoor and outdoor, although use is limited to 3 persons per lane, 10 feet apart. Arlington is subject to the governor's orders. As for Clarendon House and other mental health services, visitation balance is in review but not yet determined. There was some general mental health advice. Take breaks from your routine, take a short walk, find a way to relax. A question came up about policing in restaurants in connection with alcohol consumption. And although there has been ongoing cooperation between police and owners, the police cannot enforce the governor's orders. Concerning the protection of inmates, the sheriff and jail staff have been careful. Fewer inmates are being admitted, and some inmates have been released. Masks have been provided to staff, and they are isolating new inmates for 14 days. Community centers have not yet reopened. Regarding office space, telework is still encouraged with the goal of keeping facility occupancy low, around 30%. There have been meetings with the new superintendent of schools, but they're still in the early stages of planning. Distance learning is still favored, at least in part. There will be more to come. Asked about child-to-child transmission and child-to-adult transmission, they could only say that the virus continues to evolve and that symptomology varies. The last question was about testing for protesters. The best opportunity was Friday, June 19th at Barcroft, during which another full day was promised. Those who missed that event were advised to consult with their own healthcare provider. The Quincy Street, Innova, and Arlington Mill walk-up sites are still available. The meeting ended promptly at 1:00 p.m. Now it's time for Community Bulletin Board, or CBB. We'll open up with a notice about the Arlington County Fair. The wording of the press releases says that, and I quote, "The 2020 Arlington County Fair has been moved to a virtual format to be held August 14 through 16. However, for longtime Arlingtonians, the Arl Now headline seems more accurate. Arlington County Fair canceled. The Fair Board is working on their virtual platform and expect to announce details on their website sometime in July." Next, I've got a piece of walkabout journalism. We had a power outrage in my neighborhood starting at 4:30 Wednesday afternoon. That's not a mistake, by the way. I really dislike power outages when I'm working in electronic media. After an evening of futile napping, novel scribbling, and a disappointing wake-up at 4:00 a.m. with everything still dark, I decided to take my camera for a journalistic walk. I got some ambiguous footage of a lot of flashing lights because that's how night shots turn out. Having walked over the approximate range of the outage, I started my return trip and took a different route to get footage from another angle. It was a little after 5 a.m., and the sky was getting light. I finally got a good shot of a utility worker in a cherry-picker crane, and he was reconnecting wires with a pole way up high. Then I saw that the lights on the street had come on. It was like watching Prometheus, the light bringer, the fire giver, and the moment of delivery. Then I walked the rest of the way home and began the process of resetting every electric device in the house. Then I went online to Now, where they said that the outage was caused by a utility pole catching fire. I thought, "What's the deal, Prometheus?" or words to that effect. Still, I am inclined to leave his liver alone this time. Here's an update. An email was sent by the Arlington County Library requiring that online users update their password information. The library's system upgrade has automatically reset everyone's password using one of three values: either the last 4 digits of the user's telephone number, the first 5 digits of the user's zip code, or a default number 1015. The email did not provide any details about service improvements resulting from the upgrade. In 55 Plus news, there are finally signs of activity on the 55 Plus website. All of them are virtual events, necessitating a computer or other device with web access, but it's better than nothing. Late June events include The Power of Touch on Tuesday, June 23rd at 11 o'clock a.m. Also, George Mason, the Overlooked Founding Father, on Thursday, June 24th at 1:30 p.m. Then, Life with Diabetes on Friday, June 26th at 11 o'clock a.m. And finally, Arlington Loves Its Trees. That's on Monday, June 29th at 1:30 p.m. You can obtain a meeting link for The Power of Touch by emailing Nick England. His email address is nengland, that's ENGLUND, at arlingtonva.us. Links for the other events can be obtained from S. Budoff, that's SBUDOFF, at arlingtonva.us. That's all we have for this week, except to continue to encourage safe behavior. Now it's time for an update on last week's Signs of the Times story. Of all the signs reported along Washington Boulevard last week, only 2 types remain: the ones offering guitar lessons and the ones offering landscape services. All of the George Floyd or Black Lives Matter signs are gone. One reason may be found in an extract from Arlington's regulations about signage, which reads, and I quote, "Nothing in this provision shall be construed to authorize the posting of signs upon utility poles." Another factor could be the following text: "Each such sign shall bear clear identification and contact phone number of the establishment, person, or other entity placing the sign or causing it to be placed. Any sign that lacks such identification shall be considered a violation of this provision, regardless of whether it conforms with the other requirements of this provision." The fact that none of the George Floyd or Black Lives Matter signs provided that information might have been the basis for their removal. Finally, there are rules against placing signs on telephone poles, based on the idea that nails and staples create a puncture hazard for utility workers who need protection against electrocution. However, a survey of the Ballston area between North Glebe Road and Fairfax Drive revealed some new and somewhat different signage. First observed was a sign at the intersection of North Glebe Road and Henderson Street. It began like some of the others, saying, You are contributing to killing black people by not stopping the killing of black people. However, the text changed after that, and it used a pluralized word whose use is discouraged in broadcast journalism. Although I won't actually say the word, listeners can guess its meaning by simply jotting down the initials of the Federal Communications Commission. This will produce the letters FCC. If listeners imagine reading the letters phonetically, the result will approximate the sound of the offending term. Thus, the broadcastable version of that text reads, "Do something, you racist FCCs, since you want to live in D.C. so bad. Text Floyd to 55156. There was another copy of this sign at North Quincy Street and Wilson Boulevard. Across the street, there was also a sign that said, "Pero un samaritano que iba de camino se acercó el hombre y al verlo se compadeció de él." Lucas 10.333. This translates to, "But a Samaritan, who was on his way, met the man, and when he saw him, he took pity on him." Luke 10.333. The two signs may have had different authors, but without attribution, it's not certain. Farther north on Quincy Street, there was a sign which read, "Black Lives Matter. Scan the QR codes to donate," and provided several options for passers-by who could afford that technology before ending with, "No justice, no peace, you can help." At Fairfax Drive and Quincy Street, there was a sign with a helpful tone. "COVID keeping you from protesting? Donate. Scan the QR code," and then provided another range of options before ending with hashtag Black Lives Matter. Again, there was no attribution. When someone posts a sign, there's always the danger that someone else will follow with a different sign that may dilute the meaning. Something like this happened at Fairfax Drive and North Randolph Streets, where a Black Lives Matter sign was immediately followed by a Hiring Now sign from Target. The last sign I saw traveling west on Fairfax Drive had a big blue footprint and the words "Hunger Walk." Apart from some new graffiti on the Bluemont Junction Trail and on the side of a 7-Eleven, these were the signs of the times I saw for this week. But wait, there were even more signs, and these were of a different nature. There were signs that were intentionally displayed at local businesses and private homes. The messages were usually simple, either Black Lives Matter or the abbreviation BLM, but there was one sign in someone's front yard that was more detailed. It read as follows: "In our America, all people are equal. Love wins. Black Lives Matter. Immigrants and refugees are welcome. Disabilities are respected. Women are in charge of their bodies. People and planet are valued over profit. And diversity is celebrated." What is significant about these signs is their placement and relative permanence. It is one thing to go around the county taping anonymous signs to telephone poles and lampposts. It may serve the goal of conveying a message, but there's no claim of personal responsibility for that message. It is another thing to carry a sign or a banner in a march or demonstration as a part of a large group. While it does involve personal participation in the event, it still does not provide the carrier's name, and the sign or banner is displayed only for the duration of the demonstration, after which it can be discarded or stored in a place not visible to the public. However, posting a sign or banner on one's own business or residence suggests a more enduring and personal commitment to the message. The sign still may not divulge the individual's name, but its presence on their home or business suggests an additional message. here I am. This is where I live or work, and this is what I believe. What's more, I will express that belief here all day and all night long. These signs are the scarcest in Arlington, but they do exist in a few locations. And that concludes this week's show. We will be back next week with more news from Arlington, along with some more on-the-ground observations. Meanwhile, be careful, be safe, and be well.
I wake up in the morning to see that the sun is in the sky, and even though I got nowhere to go, I'm feeling late and I don't know why. This'll be my running trip. This'll be my running trip, my friends. This'll be my running trip. A running trip that never ends. I looked at all the people to see that they're all just passing by, and even though I got no one to meet, I'm feeling lost and I don't know why. This'll be my running trip. This'll be my running trip, my friends. This'll be my running trip. A running trip that never ends. I take the time to look around, and everywhere it's all the same. Everyone is running just as fast as they can, running just